Welcome to Hopeful Moments 1. Have you ever felt trapped in a controlling relationship where every thought and action was manipulated by someone who believed they had the right to impose their will on others? Someone who thought fear was the perfect tool to maintain power and that lies could cover up everything? But no one can run from the truth forever. Today, we will witness a dramatic confrontation, a former victim who has now grown strong enough to stand up against their oppressor. As secrets are exposed and lies have nowhere left to hide, who will truly hold the power? Get ready for a gripping story, where justice is no longer a distant dream but a reality unfolding right before your eyes. Story 1, The Big Fool and the Lesson of Reservations. On a lively evening at an upscale restaurant, the air was filled with the cheerful chatter of diners, the clinking of wine glasses, and the enticing aroma of exquisite dishes drifting through the elegant space. The staff, dressed in crisp uniforms, warmly greeted guests and guided them to tables that had been reserved well in advance. Everything was running smoothly until the restaurant doors suddenly swung open with a loud, jarring sound, disrupting the sophisticated atmosphere. For a brief moment, all eyes turned toward the entrance. A large man strode in confidently, perhaps even arrogantly, followed by a group of friends. His suit was not entirely polished, but his overbearing attitude overshadowed everything else. His gaze swept across the restaurant as if assessing which table was worthy of his presence. Ignoring the bustling surroundings and the line of customers patiently waiting for their turn, he marched straight to the reception desk. With a condescending glance at the hostess, he barked, "Give me a table, right now." His voice was loud and commanding, drowning out the conversations around him. No greeting, no politeness, just the expectation that the restaurant must cater to him immediately. The surrounding staff paused momentarily but quickly resumed their duties, maintaining their professional demeanor. The hostess, though accustomed to all kinds of customers, couldn't help but hesitate for a split second at his arrogance. Still, she remained composed, responding with a polite smile. "I'm sorry, sir, but we are fully booked tonight. If you'd like, we can reserve a table for you on another day." Her tone was courteous yet firm, showing both respect and authority. However, the reasonable explanation did not sit well with the man. His brows furrowed, and his expression darkened as if he had just been deeply insulted. He took a sharp breath, his voice rising with frustration, loud enough for nearby diners to take notice. "Ridiculous. This restaurant clearly has empty tables. I want to sit now." As he spoke, he jerked his chin toward a corner of the restaurant, where a beautifully decorated table stood, adorned with balloons and fresh flowers. The chairs around it remained unoccupied, reinforcing his belief that he was being unfairly denied. "That table right there. No one is sitting there. Why can't I take that one?" he demanded, his tone dripping with entitlement. The hostess remained composed, her gaze steady and unshaken by his aggression. "That table is reserved for a birthday party, sir," she patiently explained, her voice polite but unwavering. The explanation did nothing to quell the man's irritation. Instead, he muttered a few expletives under his breath before suddenly raising his voice. "Get me the manager. I want to see the manager right now." The atmosphere grew heavier. A few nearby diners exchanged glances, while some staff momentarily paused, waiting to see how the situation would unfold. Within moments, a middle-aged man in a neatly tailored suit emerged from the kitchen area. His composed and authoritative demeanor suggested that he was well-versed in handling difficult customers. He approached the scene, greeted the man politely, and listened to his grievances as the customer ranted about the supposed injustice. "Are you telling me I can't sit at one of those empty tables? This is absurd. Is this how you treat your customers?" the man fumed, nearly shouting as if he had been gravely wronged. Unlike the man's aggressive stance, the manager remained calm, offering a small, knowing smile. Unfazed by the outburst, he responded in a steady tone. "We respect all of our customers, including those who have made reservations. But I understand your frustration." His voice was deep and clear, carrying a firm yet gentle determination that was undeniable. Though he never raised his voice, somehow, his words carried more weight than any loud shouting. Without rushing into an argument, the manager simply nodded slightly, then slowly walked toward the row of empty tables in the restaurant. At that moment, the atmosphere seemed to still, and every eye was fixed on him, waiting to see what would happen next. With careful precision and a calm demeanor, he methodically placed a reserve sign on each of the unoccupied tables. His movements were slow but resolute, as if etching a clear lesson into the mind of the man who had just caused a disturbance in the restaurant. Silence hung in the air for a few seconds before hushed whispers broke out. Some diners smiled subtly, while others exchanged glances of admiration. They understood that the arrogant man had just been outmaneuvered in the most elegant and persuasive way. The man stood frozen in place, his face turning red with a mix of shame and anger. He clenched his jaw, his fists tightening, yet he had no retort. The tables were indeed empty, but now, with a simple action from the manager, he had no excuse to continue his unreasonable demands. He turned to his group of friends, expecting support, but instead, he saw them exchanging awkward looks. Some shook their heads slightly, while others struggled to suppress laughter. They, too, realized that they had followed an overbearing fool into an unwinnable situation. Unable to bear the humiliation any longer, he jerked his chin, signaling his group to leave. Heavy footsteps echoed as they made their way out of the restaurant. The moment the door closed behind them, a soft clap came from one corner of the room. Then another. And more followed. No one cheered loudly or shouted, but within those quiet rounds of applause was agreement, admiration, and a small sense of joy at witnessing justice being served in such an intelligent way. The manager merely smiled faintly, nodded in acknowledgement to the patrons, and quietly returned to his work, as if this was nothing more than a trivial matter. But for those who had witnessed it, the moment would not be easily forgotten. The story of the big fool was more than just a scene in a restaurant, it was a powerful reminder of courtesy and the importance of respecting common rules. In life, we can't always get what we want immediately. Rules exist not to inconvenience us but to ensure fairness for everyone. Reserving a table at a restaurant isn't just a business policy, it's a sign of respect for those who planned ahead and followed the rules. The man in the story made a critical mistake, assuming he had the right to be prioritized over others without any valid reason. His arrogance didn't just make him look foolish, it also diminished his value in the eyes of those around him. A person may be wealthy, powerful, or hold a high status, but without humility and respect, they will only earn scorn and isolation. Meanwhile, the restaurant manager demonstrated that sometimes, a smart response is more powerful than an argument. Without insulting the customer or rejecting him outright, he used a simple yet impactful action to uphold principles and protect the dignity of the establishment. So, what's the takeaway from this story? Backhand index pointing right: respect rules and those around you. The world doesn't revolve around any single person, and learning to wait and follow principles will earn you greater respect. Backhand index pointing right: arrogance only diminishes your own value. Money can buy a meal, but without kindness, it cannot buy respect. Backhand index pointing right: sometimes, intelligence and composure are the best responses. There's no need to argue loudly, a subtle yet firm action can serve as the strongest lesson for those who lack consideration. Ultimately, if you want to be treated well, behave appropriately. A polite and humble attitude won't just help you get what you want but will also allow you to build better relationships in life. Story 2: The Price of Greed. Jake, a young Navy sailor, had just endured a long, exhausting shift filled with demanding tasks that required intense focus. As the clock signaled the end of his shift, he longed for a place to unwind, sip on a cold beer, and soak in a relaxing atmosphere. A bar near the base, one that had served countless servicemen like him, seemed like the perfect choice. Approaching the entrance, he adjusted his uniform collar, relaxed his shoulders, and took a deep breath to shake off the tension. But just as he was about to step inside, a gruff voice stopped him in his tracks. "Where's your ID?" Jake looked up. Standing before him was a large security guard, arms crossed over his muscular chest, his demeanor anything but welcoming. Under the dim glow of the bar's neon sign, the guard's smug expression radiated arrogance. Not wanting to cause trouble, Jake calmly pulled his military ID from his wallet and handed it over. But as soon as he did, the guard snatched it rudely, glanced at it briefly, then smirked. "You want this back?" $20. Jake narrowed his eyes. $20? He had visited plenty of bars near the base, but he had never encountered anything like this before. It didn't take long for him to realize what was happening. The guard was exploiting his status as a serviceman to extort money. Anger flared within him, but Jake forced himself to stay composed. A soldier is trained to control emotions, even in the most aggravating situations. He knew that arguing with this man would only escalate things. "I'm not paying to get back what's rightfully mine," he stated firmly. The guard shrugged, slipped Jake's ID into his pocket, and shot him a defiant look. "Then forget about it." Jake clenched his fists. He knew how critical a military ID was, not just as proof of identity, but also for access to restricted areas and other official purposes. However, confronting this power-abusing thug head-on wouldn't solve anything. Without another word, he turned and walked away. But he wasn't giving up. The moment he left the bar, he contacted his superior and reported the entire incident. 30 minutes later, the bar witnessed a scene no one had expected. The door burst open. 3 men entered, leading them was Jake's unit supervisor, flanked by 2 fully armed, uniformed Marines with stern expressions. The bar's atmosphere instantly shifted. Conversations hushed, patrons turned their heads, sensing the tension that had suddenly filled the air. The once arrogant guard now stood frozen, his face draining of color. One of the Marines stepped forward, his voice cold and commanding. "Return the ID immediately, or this establishment is going to have a serious problem." Every word was delivered with the weight of an undeniable order. The sheer authority exuding from these soldiers made the entire bar go silent. The guard gulped. He might have been able to intimidate lone individuals, but in front of a commanding officer and 2 armed servicemen, he was nothing more than a rat facing 3 eagles. Trembling, he reached into his pocket, retrieved Jake's military ID, and placed it on the bar counter. Jake's unit supervisor picked it up, inspected it carefully, then handed it back to Jake. He shot the guard a warning glare, a silent promise that this incident wouldn't be forgotten. But that wasn't the end of it. A few days later, an official notice was issued to all military personnel stationed in the area. The message was clear. This bar was now blacklisted. All servicemen were banned from entering. For the bar's owner, this was nothing short of a financial death sentence. Bars near military bases thrived on business from service members. Losing that customer base meant a devastating drop in revenue. All because of one greedy and foolish security guard. Weeks passed, but the aftermath of the incident lingered. The once bustling bar, filled with the lively chatter of Navy men unwinding after their shifts, had now become eerily quiet, like an abandoned watering hole. No more uniforms at the door, no more familiar faces gathering for drinks. Only empty seats and a bar steeped in desolation. Profits plummeted. The owner, who once viewed military personnel as a steady source of income, now watched helplessly as his business bled money. The sporadic civilian customers weren't nearly enough to make up for the loss. What was once a thriving establishment now teetered on the edge of irrelevance. And as for the security guard, the man who had smugly demanded $20 for a military ID, he was fired. With no job, no authority to abuse, and no smug attitude left, he was just another unemployed fool who had destroyed his own career with sheer greed. Jake, the one who had initiated the entire ordeal, never needed to seek revenge. He had no interest in gloating over the downfall of the bar or the guard. Justice had been served, not through violence, but through the natural consequences of their own actions. This story stands as undeniable proof of a timeless truth: greed and injustice always come at a cost. Key takeaways. Even the smallest acts of wrongdoing can lead to severe consequences. The security guard thought he could make a quick $20 by exploiting a young sailor. What he didn't realize was that the military is a united force. When one is wronged, the whole organization takes action. That small abuse of power cost him his job, and it cost the bar its entire military clientele. Integrity and fairness matter more than petty schemes. Jake could have argued, fought, or even tried to take back his ID by force. But he chose the smarter route, reporting the incident. It was the most effective way to resolve the issue without unnecessary conflict. Those who abuse their power for personal gain will always face consequences. Power should never be misused. The guard tried to use his position to extort someone, and it backfired spectacularly, not just on him, but on the entire establishment he worked for. When faced with injustice, respond wisely. This story highlights that patience and the right approach can bring justice in the most decisive way. Jake didn't need to raise his voice or his fists, he simply took the right steps, and the system handled the rest. Story 4, 2 Chads and an Expensive Lesson. Tonight, the upscale restaurant glows brilliantly under its magnificent chandeliers. The banquet tables are impeccably arranged, adorned with pristine white tablecloths and gleaming silverware reflecting the flickering candlelight. The air is filled with lively chatter, the clinking of wine glasses, and an atmosphere of sophistication befitting a company gala. Waiters move gracefully between tables, professional and composed, as guests indulge in the evening's festivities with ease and delight. Everything seems to be running smoothly until 2 men arrive. 2 men, whom their colleagues refer to as Chads, stride in with an air of supreme confidence. Their expensive tailored suits cling to their physiques, but it is their attitude that immediately commands attention. From the moment they sit down, they exude arrogance. One of them scans the waiter from head to toe, smirks, and tilts his chin up before asking, "Do you know who we are?" The waiter maintains his professional smile, though it's evident he has dealt with many such customers before. He patiently hands over the prearranged company drinks menu, but the Chad merely glances at it with disdain and shrugs. "We have MBAs. And we only drink top-tier wine," he declares smugly. Disregarding the company's spending agreement, the 2 boldly order premium bottles of wine, each one costing as much as a regular employee's monthly salary. Luxurious cocktails are added to the tab, as if they are determined to flaunt their status. The waiter reluctantly notes their orders, while others at the event gradually take notice of their excessive behavior. But no one says a word, at least not until the bill arrives. As the night winds down, the atmosphere remains festive. But the moment the waiter places the bill on the table, the mood shifts instantly. The host, a stern-looking middle-aged man, reaches for the bill. His eyes immediately narrow at the staggering total printed on it. "What is this?" he demands, his sharp tone silencing the entire table. The waiter discreetly glances at the 2 Chads before professionally, yet somewhat uneasily, explaining the situation. Now, all eyes are fixed on the 2 arrogant men. Yet instead of showing remorse, one of them merely shrugs and chuckles. "Oh, don't worry. It's just a little wine. The company can surely afford it, right?" A prolonged silence follows. The host firmly places the bill back on the table, a simple gesture, yet one loaded with weight. "The company will not cover your reckless spending," his voice is resolute, leaving no room for argument. "If you ordered it, you pay for it." Suddenly, the Chads lose their composure. Their faces turn pale as they glance at each other, then at the bill, a figure they had never considered when frivolously ordering their drinks. "This is insane. It's just a few bottles of wine," one stammers, but no one responds. Now, every gaze in the room awaits one action from them. With no other option, they are forced to pull out their credit cards. Slowly, they swipe them, feeling each digit deducted from their account like a dagger to their pride. But it doesn't end there. Once everything is settled, the host turns to the waiter, the one who endured the duo's rudeness all evening. He flashes a polite but knowing smile. "Thank you for putting up with these gentlemen. To make up for it, I'm increasing your tip to 25%. A hush falls over the room. The 2 Chads feel the ultimate humiliation. In that moment, they realize they have become a laughingstock in front of everyone. The waiter accepts the bill with quiet satisfaction, his subtle smile speaking louder than words, letting the two men know they had just been defeated without a single insult hurled their way. In the end, they bow their heads and leave, their hearts heavy with regret, but with no choice but to accept the reality. 1. Arrogance and boasting won't make you great. The two Chads believe they could act with impunity, but the truth is, the world doesn't revolve around them. Their arrogance only made them detestable, and in the end, they paid a hefty price. 2. Personal responsibility cannot be avoided. They thought they could bend the rules and dump their expenses on the company, but in the end, the one who spends is the one who pays. There's no such thing as a free meal, nor is irresponsibility ever forgiven. 3. Kindness can be the most powerful weapon. The waiter didn't need to argue or show frustration. He simply remained professional and let time and circumstances teach the Chads the harshest lesson of all. 4. Sometimes, the worst punishment is letting someone humiliate themselves. No one yelled or insulted the Chads, yet they fell into a trap of their own making. And the shame of facing their colleagues, along with the financial blow, was the most fitting consequence. Whether in a bar, or restaurant, or a corporate event, the common theme in these stories is that arrogance and greed always come at a cost, while integrity and composure are always rewarded. Those who exploit power for personal gain, belittle others, or arrogantly believe they are untouchable inevitably face consequences, be it financial loss, damaged reputation, or missed future opportunities. On the other hand, those who remain patient, fair, and wise in their actions always find justice on their side, sometimes without even having to demand it. These stories are not just personal anecdotes but lessons in how people interact in society. Respect, responsibility, and humility are indispensable values, while selfishness and conceit will always be weeded out over time. So, the real question isn't how much money, status, or education you have, but how you treat those around you. In this world, integrity is always the most profitable investment. Success and status don't define life alone, how we treat others does. The characters in these stories, from the greedy security guard to the arrogant woman, and finally, the two conceited men, share the same fatal flaw: they overestimated their own importance and underestimated the consequences. But respect isn't something money can buy, it's built through attitude and actions. Treating people well, whether they're waiters or colleagues, isn't just politeness, it's the foundation of meaningful relationships. Because in one moment, you may be the powerful customer or executive, but one misstep could cost you the respect of those around you. So, remember. Don't let arrogance blind you. A humble attitude will take you further in life. Respect rules and fairness. Privilege doesn't mean you can trample on others. Bad actions always have consequences. You may not see them immediately, but justice will come. Kindness and integrity are the most enduring values. If you want respect, start by giving it. In the end, intelligence isn't just about knowledge, it's about conduct. A truly successful person understands the value of respect, responsibility, and dignity, because those are the things that can never be lost, no matter where life takes you.